The Wraith, written by Frank Dirscherl, narrated by Dalan E. Decker. Chapter 1. Metro City, a hothouse of evil and corruption. Since its birth in the late 1800s, much promise had been held for the city. It was meant as a metropolis to show New York and Chicago how to do it, planned as a beacon of light and hope. How ironic, then, that since the Prohibition era of the 1920s, Metro City had surpassed those other great cities as a den of iniquity and vice. For a reason that was long since forgotten, crime lords had held the city in their sway, with city officials deep in their pockets. A few honest men and women endured, doing their best to stem the tide, but it was all they could do to simply tread water. As a result of the corruption, large portions of the city were neglected, in various states of disrepair, as city officials looked after their own interests and strove for their own protection. But there were still good people, those willing to fight for what was right and just, regular folk who dreamed of what might have been and worked, in their own small way, to achieve those dreams. People like the Commissioner of Police, George Harrison, and some of the officers under his command. Then there was the Wraith. For a few years now, a cloaked figure calling itself the Wraith waged his own personal war on crime. Very few truly believed in his existence. Only those whose word could not be trusted had seen this man, but he had made a difference. His legend spread, his myth had taken hold, and people began to hope once more for a better future. One of those men was police officer Michael Reeve. The Wraith staggered into the dark alley and came into the light of the full moon, his black cape no longer cloaking him in darkness, no longer shielding the eyes of judgment on his chest. Moving forward, he slumped against the wall to his left, panting and heaving. For what seemed an eternity, he rested there. Then, gathering his strength, continued forward. Coming to the end of the alleyway, the Wraith looked up into the night sky. The corpulent moon was almost blinding in its brightness. He reached for the ladder to the fire escape and pulled. With a tired groan, the ladder lowered to the ground. He gasped, discomfort enveloping him, and began his ascent. He worked his way slowly upwards. At the top, the Wraith tried to climb over the balcony's railing, but stumbled and fell onto several potted plants that were on the rooftop, and lay there. He gathered his strength once more. In the weak balcony light, his injuries became clear. Blood oozed from a deep wound to his chest, the blood having splattered onto his arms where he had tried to stop its flow. His right shoulder was wounded just as badly. Weakly rising, the Wraith eyed the sliding door leading into the apartment. One step forward. Another. And another. One more, and he was there. He banged furiously on the door, panting, barely able to stand on his own strength, and waited for a response. "What the?" came a voice from within. A light turned on in the apartment, but nothing clear was visible through the curtains. The curtains ripped open, and the man the Wraith had come to see appeared. Michael Reeve stared silently through the glass door. "Oh, my lord," he said, though the Wraith could only see the words mouthed from behind the door's glass. Without further hesitation, Michael unlocked the door and slid it open. The Wraith took one careful step inside and collapsed to the floor. Michael was stunned beyond belief. Here was his idol, the man whom nobody, at least nobody he knew, believed in save himself. He had been denigrated for his beliefs and honesty by many of those he worked with for believing in what was no more than a ghost story. But now, here was the Wraith, in his own apartment. "You're the," was all he could utter. The Wraith slowly rose to his knees, and Michael saw the horrific wound on his chest. "You're wounded. You need help," he said. "Must pass it on before it's too late," the Wraith said. Michael helped him to his feet. "I'll help you to the sofa, then I'm calling for an ambulance," he said. "No, there is little time left," the Wraith said. "You
Sample complete. Ready to continue?